Location: Port of Antwerp, the second biggest port in Europe. Just like its neighbouring ports in the Netherlands and Germany, the Port of Antwerp is a honeypot for worldwide drug smugglers. In the past few years, Belgian customs officers have seized more cocaine year after year. In 2023, they managed to seize a record amount of 116 tons of the white gold. You would think that seizing such large amounts sure means they do a pretty good job in preventing cocaine from coming into their country, right? Well, not really. One man in particular found a method that single-handedly changed the smuggling game. The method he worked out decreased the chance of a shipment being caught significantly, and it's still being used till this day. With relative ease, he smuggled in thousands of kilos of coke and earned himself millions. It resulted in him getting the fitting nickname, the King of the Switch. But what was his method? And what made it so successful? Smuggling coke isn't as easy as you may think. It requires the right contacts, meticulous planning, and a lot of henchmen. And no matter how good you have those three aspects in order, even the best and biggest smugglers see their precious cargo get seized every now and then. There are several different methods which smugglers have been using for many years. One of the most common ones is the misuse of legitimate goods. The drugs are disguised as or incorporated into legitimate goods in South America and then shipped to Europe. It could be anything from toys, bags of rice, or even inside avocados, for example. You name it, and it's probably being done already. Another labor-intensive method is to hide cocaine inside a shipping container itself, in, for example, the floor, the roof, cooling compartments, or exterior beams. However, this requires a lot of work to open and close, thus it is used less frequently. Then we have the rip-on and rip-off method. Unbeknown to the sender and recipient of the container, it is opened by smugglers and the drugs are placed inside the container on top of the goods already in there. Once it arrives at the final destination, henchmen are sent into the port to extract the drugs before the recipient of the container gets to it. These are all methods that have been used for ages to smuggle drugs from South America into Europe. But as customs officers increasingly focused on containers coming specifically from South America, drug smugglers saw an increase in their shipments getting seized. It was time for a change, and one man managed to find the perfect solution that significantly decreased the chances of his drugs being seized by overzealous customs officers. It was genius. The man was none other than Abdelilah El M, also known as Abdel, or Black. Abdel, a man of Moroccan descent, was born in 1985 and grew up in Belgium. Very little is known about his early life, as he managed to remain unknown to the broader public, just like any criminal tries to. However, in 2013, his name popped up for the first time. He was arrested for setting up illegal cannabis-growing farms throughout Belgium, together with associates of his. Abdel had 5 active growing farms, and one was in the process of being built. He would have other people rent facilities in their name, and then recruited people from Romania to set up the growing house. They would also take care of the plants and harvest them. While preparing to build another 3 of these growing houses, Abdel somehow caught the eye of Belgian law enforcement. They decided to tap his phone and had collected enough evidence to arrest him in September 2013. As this was not the biggest crime, Abdel was released after serving a very short time in prison, which, looking back, may have been one of his greatest investments ever, because inside the prison, he allegedly made good contacts that allowed him to shift from the cannabis trade to the much more lucrative cocaine trade. Together with new associates, he set up a new organization later called the Makreelbende. With Abdel at the helm, they would bring in successful shipment after shipment right through the port of Antwerp. Where other smugglers saw their precious cargo get seized, Abdel had a much higher success rate, all thanks to his own brand new smuggling method, the switch it was called. As I mentioned earlier, containers from South America became the prime target for customs officers and were subject to scans and checks more than ever. To combat this, Abdel came up with a simple yet highly effective trick. All he needed was a container from Europe. Thanks to his corrupt contacts in the port of Antwerp, Abdel was able to have his container with cocaine from South America placed in the vicinity of a container with European origin. Why the European container was so important? European containers were subject to less frequent checks and scans than their South American counterparts. When both containers were close to each other on the dock, Abdel would have his associates carry the coke over from the South American container to the European container. The chances of additional checks for this European container were slim, thus increasing Abdel's success rate. Once done, this container would be picked up and brought to a safe location where the coke could be extracted from whatever it was shipped in. It truly was as simple as that. In a little over a year, between March 2014 and September 2015, Abdel and the rest of the Makreelbende did at least 10 switches police knows about. Out of these 10, 8 had been successful and just 2 of them failed after customs managed to seize the cocaine. One of the shipments was seized on the 18th of June 2015. The MSC Lorena docked in the Port of Antwerp and underwent a thorough check by police and customs. The switch could not have taken place. A container with a wrong seal number caught the attention of customs officers. It was opened for further inspection, and immediately upon opening, 6 duffel bags were found with a total of 220 kilos of coke. Dock worker Renzo Q and transporter Mike D, both associates of Abdel, were actually patiently waiting on that specific container to do the switch method and transport it. Associate Abdelilah El M even traded shifts with his co-worker to work on that specific day, and was sat behind his computer to track its movements and see if it was okay to conduct the switch method. However, he noticed something was wrong and tipped off the rest of the group. At the end of September 2015, the gang got very lucky after a container with 300 kilos was transported to a large warehouse in Belgium, Belgium. The switch went successful, and the coke was extracted from the containers. Abdel's associates divided the coke among several cars and transported it to another place. Unbeknownst to the associates, police were on their way. However, they arrived a fraction too late and found nothing but a few empty duffel bags laying in the empty warehouse. Further investigation did lead to the arrest of an associate of Abdel, though. It was Giacomo P, the man responsible for the switch of containers in the ports. However, a failed shipment was nothing compared to what was about to happen. The death of one of the Netherlands' biggest drug smugglers a year earlier would cause serious trouble in Belgium for Abdel and his organization. Gwenette Martha was fatally shot in May 2014. Around that time, there was a war raging in Amsterdam between 2 groups of cocaine smugglers, in which he was the key player. The hail of bullets Gwenette succumbed to managed to almost hit everything except the USB stick he carried on him. Police discovered this USB stick, and rightfully so, were intrigued to see what was on it. They managed to retrieve its data, and that's when the ball started rolling. Abdel was in serious trouble. Among the files were pictures taken of a computer screen. Upon further investigation, it was determined that these pictures were taken in the office of shipping company MSC in Antwerp. Police managed to find out who the photographer was. It was a man called Abdelilah El M, who worked as a logistical planner at MSC. I mentioned him earlier, remember? As part of his job, Nordin had access to information about when and where containers would arrive or leave. He photographed the movements of certain containers and sent that information to another man called Makreelbende El. Morad, in his turn, was traced back to being a close contact of Abdel and was seen as one of his most important associates by the Belgian investigators. Just like that, police found out who was at the top of the chain, Abdel. Purely by coincidence, the fatal hit on Gwenette would fire back on Abdel without him having any clue, nor having anything to do with it. Associate Giacomo's arrest would become the first of many. Belgian police managed to gather enough evidence to arrest the entire organisation and exercise 25 well-planned raids throughout Belgium in November 2015. One of the 25 raids was done at Renzo Q's house, Abdel's trusted dock worker. To their total surprise, police found bundles upon bundles of cash in bags and suitcases that were lying throughout Renzo's house. Stacks of 10, 20, 50, 100 and 500 euro bills, bundled together with rubber bands. In total, it amounted to over €1 million. Renzo's wife responded shocked and said to the police, "I thought all the cash in our house was in my wallet." The police officers said she must have known about all the cash, because there was also a significant amount laying in her closet. Quite a lot of cash for a dock worker. It was obvious that Renzo was not just the organization's dock worker, but also functioned as their bank. He was responsible for picking up money if coke had been sold, delivering money if a new batch of coke was being purchased, and stashing it, all per the strict orders of Abdel. After all 25 raids took place, there was absolutely no sign of Abdel. Where was he at? Well, he might have felt it coming, because right before the raids took place, Abdel fled Belgium. For the past year, he had already been moving between the UAE, Spain, and South America. Occasionally, he would come back to Belgium, but he either felt something coming or might have been informed and decided to leave Belgium for good. This also meant that he did not turn up to his own trial that took place in 2020. He was eventually sentenced in absentia to 8 years in prison for large-scale drug smuggling. Though this did not mean that he stopped smuggling drugs. Decrypted PGP messages showed he was still heavily involved in trafficking coke. Abdel had recruited 2 employees of Van Moer, a logistics company in the Port of Antwerp. In between February 2020 and March 2021, Lisbeth S. and Nikki M. helped Abdel with the containers and the chauffeurs needed to get the coke safely out of the port. According to investigators, Abdel orchestrated at the very least 9 shipments with a total of 7,200 kilos. They admitted that it could be upwards of 15,000 kilos. This netted him at least over 40 million in profit. 3 other shipments worth a total of 3,986 kilos were seized. Once again, a way higher win rate, all thanks to his switch method. Then in February 2023, the news broke. Abdel was arrested, not in the UAE, Belgium, or South America, but in Turkey. He was arrested during a routine traffic stop in Turkey after he had just come back from a skiing trip. Interestingly enough, he was not even arrested because of being a fugitive kingpin. He was arrested because he had troubles with his tourist visa. It led to him being sent to an asylum centre in Turkey. Belgian Minister of Justice, Vincent van Quickenborne, requested for his extradition. However, Abdel has the Belgian and Moroccan nationality, so he could ask for extradition to Morocco instead of Belgium. Furthermore, Belgium has jailed a Turkish native that Turkey wants to prosecute themselves. Belgium has refused to extradite this person. This obviously makes Turkey less inclined to extradite Abdel to Belgium. And to make matters worse, in June 2023, Abdel was sentenced to another 14-year jail sentence on top of his 8-year jail sentence that was already awaiting him, making the grand total 22 years. Till this day, he remains in Turkey. It's unknown if and when he will be extradited to Belgium. Want to do me a small favour? Please leave a comment, a like, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I have many more videos coming soon.